And Gator Bytes is live.
And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network, also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, the Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Swimming Island, and St. John's. He is Graham Marsh. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. Florida Gators got a huge win over LSU last week. Senior day tomorrow in the swamp against everybody who wanted Lane Kiffin to be their head coach. It's an interesting dynamic as Lane Kiffin brings Ole Miss in. And the playoffs, Graham, have already started for Ole Miss. They have to beat Florida tomorrow to keep their playoff hopes alive. First and foremost, man, how we doing?
Good sir. Good sir. It's Friday. You're right. Huge monumental win on Saturday. Would you say the biggest win of Napier's career at Florida so far?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the only other two options would have been Utah in 22 or Tennessee last year. And based on where Napier was, job security, everything, recruits that were in the building last week, the whole work, I think, yeah, the LSU win was the biggest win to date for Billy Napier.
Yeah, because those two games didn't have. I know they gave him the vote of confidence and everything, but I think you and I may have talked about this briefly. I know Dylan Denmark and I did as well. We talked about like they gave the vote of confidence, but listen, you ripped off three losses in a row, LSU, Ole Miss, and find a way to lose to Florida State. Like I think the conversation is very much still alive on moving on from Billy Napier. He put that completely to bed against LSU. There's no way. I mean, I guess if they found a way to lose to Florida State, which I don't believe is even as long as they show up and have a pulse. I don't see a way they lose to Florida State in Tallahassee, especially because it kind of sucks. It's unfortunate for Florida State, but with them doing their stadium renovation and stuff, you can't even say that Doak is going to be necessarily what it normally is. So as long as they beat Florida State, and then you just really hope they're competitive and put something nice together in this game, and obviously ideally they win, then there's a lot to really feel excited about going into next year, Hack.
Well, one of the surprises to me was, I mean, them winning the game to me was a surprise. I picked LSU to win, but the lines of scrimmage, man. I mean, the offensive line and the running game was very good, and they've been really good for a while now when Lagway's in there. But that D line, I mean, do you think LSU had given up 6 sacks the entire year heading into last week? Florida got 7 in one game. I mean, LSU did not have an answer. Caleb Banks, holy moly. Tyreek Sapp, TJ Searcy, all the guys on the. I mean, you want to talk about a the LSU offensive line was ready to get out of Gainesville, Florida last week. What a dominating effort in both the trenches on the O line and the D line, which again show improvement. It sounds juvenile, but it's kind of where we are with this program. And clearly, the defensive line, holy cow, they are way better now than they certainly were a month or so ago.
I don't know what they started doing in practice. I don't know what they started feeding Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks before football games, but whatever they switched up, keep doing it
Yeah.
because it's working. I got to call you out, Hack, as I told you. I have
Yes.
to call out
Looking
Hacker
forward
in
to
in
this.
in front of our award-winning Gator Bites listeners who we truly appreciate. Hacker's tweet during the game: LSU is clearly better than Florida. Florida is playing hard, but at a certain point, that statement is not going to mean very much any longer.
Yeah.
Hack. First of all, we got to talk about you tweeting things prematurely.
Well, here's the thing, all right, and I saw that you responded to that like 2 hours after the fact, mind you, which I thought was
That's what
pretty
we got to
funny.
talk about.
So, in the thing with social media to me is like Twitter's a garbage can for the most part. There's nothing redeeming about it. If it wasn't for my job, I probably wouldn't be on Twitter. But if you're going to be on it, you're going to respond in real time. And when I'm on it and LSU is dominating the lines of scrimmage, LSU is 12 of 16 or whatever they were on third down, it can be frustrating. So at that time, yeah, LSU was the better football team. Florida couldn't get off the field. Florida was struggling on offense. LSU was winning the game. I mean, yeah. Now, of course, 2 hours later or 90 minutes later, when things change, then yeah, my thought process changes. But it's social media. You don't not put stuff out there for fear that in 2 hours you might look bad. I could care less about looking bad. I'm going to give you my thoughts right then and there. I'm happy I was wrong, but at the time I tweeted that and I tweeted other stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I believed at that moment.
Two things. First, you always have this funny thing about getting mad at people for coming after you 2 hours afterwards.
And you know why? And not you, but just people in general. I get a lot of people that will respond to me after their narrative is already met. Like, I don't get a lot of people when LSU's winning by 10 points that'll say, oh, you're going to be wrong. Florida's going to come back and win, or you're an idiot, or this and the other. No, 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 no. They'll wait until Florida takes the lead an hour and a half later, or they'll wait till the game ends to respond. If you think I'm an idiot, then respond when I say it. Don't give me this 3 hours after the fact when your narrative is met.
But Hack, when you tweet something premature during the game and it comes back to bite you, you're in the wrong for tweeting it, not the people coming after you when you turn out to be wrong.
Well,
That's
no,
why
I
you
mean,
don't. That's why you don't.
like I said,
You
do
don't
I
tweet premature
do you
stuff
think I
during the
care
game.
that I don't care that I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. But see, I'm
I think
one
you
of the
care a little. I think you care a little.
no, no, I all openly admit that I'm wrong. One of the biggest problems in our industry, and it's not just like this at the radio station, but it's like this in all sports radio, sports TV as well. Writers, people don't like admitting when they're wrong. I admit when I'm wrong all the time. I've been way wrong about a lot of things. But again, the whole point to me when you're tweeting stuff during the game, and this happens during the Jaguar games too, at that moment, that's how I feel. Just like right now at whatever it is, 9:35 on a Friday, something could happen 20 minutes from now that makes this look like a bad podcast or a bad comment. But in real time, that's how I'm reacting to it. Now, if it comes back to bite me 90 minutes later, then so be it. But I just do find it funny that no one really calls me out on those sort of things until their narrative is met 2 hours later when the game is vastly different at the time that I tweeted something out. But
But
that's what Twitter is.
that's the price you pay for tweeting something premature during the game.
So what should I do?
Tweeting
Just
your
not
emotions
tweet?
is one thing, and tweeting how you feel while you're watching the game, and then tweeting something premature, knowing things could change, is another.
Right. So I should just not tweet anything for
No,
fear
you
that it's
should
going to come
tweet.
back and get me 90 minutes
No,
later.
no, no. You should tweet stuff during the game. But like if you had said LSU right now looks clearly better than Florida, we'll see how the game plays out. That's different from you saying it's a matter of time until Florida's going to fall in their face, basically.
No, but I do think the whole narrative about playing hard, that would have been that narrative when I said that. And look, we're getting into the minutia of it. I don't
I love the
mind people.
minutia.
I don't mind people coming at me, but I'm going to come back at them because again, if you go back and look at that timeline, I got a bunch of responses, but none of those responses, none of them were 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes later. They were all like 2 hours later when the game was already vastly different than when I tweeted it out. But regardless, it was a huge
So
win for. Go ahead.
I was going to say here's the second thing. I said there's two things about the tweet, and this will allow us to get more into the game. I disagreed with your tweet. At no point watching that game did I ever feel like LSU was clearly better than Florida. I never felt that one time. Look, I understand Florida and something that I desperately hope they worked on this week. It's their main Achilles heel on defense right now is definitely getting off the field on third down. That was a problem.
They were horrible.
Oh,
Horrible.
it was bad. It was bad. Like, and when it gets really frustrating, Hack, is like when teams are converting third and twos, third and threes. Okay, you live with that. But LSU is converting third and 8, third and 9, third and 10. That's an issue that they got to fix. That'll definitely give you. But other than that, I did not watch that game thinking LSU's dominating Florida. I
I
didn't.
did. I did in the first half. The game was
Was it
different in the second half.
was it
I
because
thought in
of
the
time of
first.
possession? I don't see what you were seeing in terms of LSU's clearly better.
Yeah, no, I just thought you go back and look at the first half stats compared to the second half. In fact, most of Florida's sacks came in the second half. Obviously, the Jaden Ball run came in the second half. The second half was vastly different than the first half. Florida was better in the second half. But if you go back to the first half or to halftime, it might have not looked bad on the scoreboard. But to me, and again, it's an opinion, right? To me, LSU was the better football team in the first half of that game. And to
But I,
Florida's credit, they came back and obviously changed that in the second half.
but my question is, what were you seeing that made you feel like LSU was clearly the better team in the first half?
Well, again, third downs was a big one. And Florida
Right.
not being able to get off the field. Um, I don't think the offense in the first half was near as good as they did in the second half. And to the coach's credit, they made adjustments. Um, and again, I mean, look, was it a Detroit Jacksonville difference? No. But if you look at those two teams in quarters 1 and 2 last week, to me, LSU was better. And in quarters 3 and 4, clearly Florida was better, and that's why they won the football game.
Because the bulk of them came in the second half. But Florida did get some sacks in the first half, and LSU's offensive line or defensive line, excuse me, was not getting to DJ Lagway at any point in the game. And the time of possession thing, I've been fighting this battle all week. Rob, who comes on a lot, I appreciate you, Rob, for coming in. He says, "Come on, Graham. LSU went up and down the field and dominated time of possession." I've been fighting this time of possession battle all week. There's two sides to this time of possession story because we all know LSU dominated time of possession. It was basically 2-1. I get it, but
Well,
here's the thing:
when you convert 75% of your third downs, you're going to dominate time of possession.
well, right, and that's half of the story. Half of the story was Florida couldn't get off the field defensively on third down, which again we've talked about. That's an issue, and that's something that I think Ole Miss would make you pay for, and win the game because I think Ole Miss would figure out a way to get into the end zone on some of those drives that LSU couldn't figure out. But there's a whole other half of that time of possession story, which is Florida's offense. Florida was scoring on big explosive plays because of A, Jaden Ball's big run at the end of the game, and B, because DJ Lagway's right arm was blessed by God himself and hits people dead in the hands 30 plus yards down the field. Your drives aren't going to be as long when that happens and you're completing the ball down the field. I mean, Florida's two touchdown drives, other than the Jaden Ball touchdown, both were either sparked or they scored on a DJ Lagway deep ball. And in one case, in the first drive, it was two DJ Lagway. He hit Chim DK. That was like a 30-yard plus pass on a ridiculous throw. Ridiculous throw. Drops it right in the bucket down the right sideline. And then a couple plays later, hits Badger dead in the hands in the end zone. And then later on, of course, hits Badger again deep down the field. Jacoby Jackson walks right in. Like, that's with DJ Lagway's ability to throw it down the field, Florida is probably going to play more games like that, and that's not a bad thing if they're scoring points. Like, again, Florida's defense got to get off the field on third down. I totally with you there. That's a problem they need to fix. It was aggravating as hell to me, Hack. I don't know if you felt the same way. Florida, they were sending some pressure on first and second down and really bothering Nussmeier, and it was helping them stop the run too when LSU did try to run the ball, which is sparingly. But then third down, they were playing soft, and I know you don't want to go Todd Grantham here running gauge 8 on 3rd and 9. I get that, but sending one extra here and again and not letting Nussmeier totally know where you might be sending extra pressure was working for the Gators all night long.
Yeah.
And it was weird to me that they were kind of backing off like that. And that was something that hopefully they switch up a little bit this week. Because if you give Jackson Dart time in that offense, they're going to eat you alive.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you do your third down defense against Ole Miss like you did against LSU, Florida's dead tomorrow. I mean, it'll be a blowout. You cannot do that. You have got to get off the field on third down. Jackson Dart is considerably better than anything LSU resembles in a quarterback. Ole Miss, the last time they went out,
Nussmeier's a good player, man. He's not as good as Dart, but Nussmeier's a good quarterback. To be fair,
he's all right. I mean, but the last time we saw Ole Miss, they were wiping the floor with Georgia. I mean, that's what you need to know about how good Ole Miss is playing right now. So
yeah, they also lost to LSU this year.
Well, and I want to bring that up quickly. Gator Bytes podcast, Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, brings it to you every week here on the 1010XL.com podcast network and also on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Go to se-ortho.com for the very best in orthopedic care here in our area, Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. Quickly, the two teams Ole Miss lost to this year were who?
LSU and Kentucky. Yeah, this has been a
Which,
talking point all week.
which is interesting because obviously those are the two most dominating performances for the Gators this year are LSU and Kentucky. They beat Kentucky by 4 touchdowns. They LSU obviously last week. And I don't know if that means anything. Could mean absolutely nothing. Could mean something. We'll find out tomorrow. But it's interesting because I look at this Ole Miss team and I think it's a bad matchup for Florida with Ole Miss and their offense and their wide receiver talent, the skill positions, and Jackson Dart gets the ball out of his hands very quickly, which should neutralize the Gator pass rush. Yet I don't know why Florida completely dominated, and I do mean dominated, the two teams that Ole Miss lost to. That's odd to me.
Well, to your point, you just said I think matchups do matter. College football momentum matters. Like even if you're the underdog in a game in college football, especially like how often do we see like a first quarter start a certain way and then the game kind of snowballs from there, especially when a team like the Gators is at home and you can get the crowd behind you. Being in noon, Florida catches a tough break with that game being at noon. If that game's at night, I think the conversation's different.
I don't know
Or
why
3:30.
ABC did that. I mean, Florida Ole Miss is the best game tomorrow. I guess the Texas name at 3:30 and the Alabama name at 7:30 is why. But if you look at the SEC slate tomorrow on ABC, the noon game is the best game of the three.
And it's not even close. And then you also lump that in with the fact that Ohio State and Indiana play at noon.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of that. And Florida, it's a disadvantage for Florida. It's not anything crazy, but it would be really cool if it was a night game. Is basically what I'm saying. But anyways, I agree with you, Hack, that the matchup is not ideal for the Gators, especially the Gators on defense, who have been playing better as of late. But what's the game recently where they fell completely on their face? It was Texas, right? And I know the context matters, and Aiden Warner was in the game instead of Lagway, and that changes things somewhat. But the defense in that game didn't even need to come. Like they may as well have let Texas run plays on air. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And where Florida has really struggled this year is teams that offensively A have a really good quarterback, and B, with that really good quarterback, do things offensively to keep you off balance. And they throw a lot of eye candy at you and fakes and misdirection and play action. And that type of offense, which is what Lane Kiffin's going to motion people all over the place and fake handoffs and go against, roll out to the right, throw it to the left, and do a lot of kind of all over the place stuff that Florida's defense has not shown they have a good grip on. And that's worrisome to me.
How similar? I mean, the up tempo obviously, but you think of Tennessee's offense compared to Ole Miss's offense. Florida did really well in Knoxville against Heupel and that offense. Now they ultimately lost the game. It wasn't the defense's fault. Does the fact that they've seen an up tempo style like this with the Volunteers does that help them tomorrow?
I mean, I guess, but I think Florida did play well in that game defensively, Hack. But as you probably remember, there were 2 or 3 occasions where Florida's secondary was beat, and Nico Iamaleava just missed the throw. And you're looking at maybe a 50, 60-yard play, even a touchdown house call that Tennessee just wasn't able to capitalize on, even though it was there. I think Ole Miss is going to make them pay if they get in those types of situations. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of that game, we're talking about the 2 or 3 times that Ole Miss really burned them down the field. And go ahead. Well, I was going to say, like, you fast forward to the Texas game, it's not really a tempo, but it's misdirection, it's eye candy. How many times did Texas create a bunch of chaos up front for Florida's linebackers and DBs to look at, and they got lost? And before you know it, Quinn Ewers is throwing the ball, and the broadcast pans over down the field, and there's somebody by themselves down the field walking in for a touchdown. That happened a lot. So Ole Miss can do things, can manipulate your defense in similar ways. I need to see if Florida truly is a team that's on the rise, if they're truly a team that's growing, if they're truly a team that's getting better. At some point, they've got to prove that that is not going to be their kryptonite. And at some point, the DBs and Will Harris and that group has to prove that they're not going to get just easily fooled by stuff like that, and they're going to be a tougher out and make you have to work harder to score than that.
We got to go quick here, but the fact that Ole Miss and their playoffs have already began, they have to win tomorrow, obviously. Now, Florida wants to get bowl eligible, but they still have a chance against Florida State. But it's a much more important game for Ole Miss. If they lose, they're going to be eliminated from the playoff. So, to me, it's going to be really interesting and telling if Florida can be in this game in the fourth quarter. Be in the
Yeah.
game in the fourth quarter. All right. When the, when they start doing Tom Petty, I won't back down. And then you do We Are the Boys, and it's a touchdown game or a whatever. If it's close, and then how much of the nerves, the uneasiness sets in on that Ole Miss sideline with, man, we got to win this game. We have to be darn near flawless in the fourth quarter. You just got to survive. It's like I said against Tennessee, and they did this. You got to survive the first 20 to 25 minutes. Now, I would think because they're at home, that will help, even though it's a noon kick. Um, Ole Miss is going to come out to try to do a kill shot pretty quick. They were off last week. Florida had a tough physical game against LSU. Again, the last time we saw Ole Miss was them dismantling Georgia. They're
They're going
feeling really
against a
good
hostile
about,
crowd.
yeah, they're feeling really good about things.
I agree with that.
Survive the first 20 to 25 minutes because at that point, if you do that and you get to halftime with it being a competitive game, then all the pressure goes on to Ole Miss knowing they have to win the game tomorrow.
I definitely agree that I think Ole Miss is going to come out. I mean, shoot, man, you could even be talking about first couple of plays. They'll probably do something to try to get down the field and create a big explosive their first drive on offense. Would not be surprised at all by that. I totally agree with you. Which is going to be why it's all the more important, like I was saying, for Florida's DB's got to be disciplined. They've shown their ability. They're clearly good. Even these guys that have stepped in for Devin Moore and Jason Marshall being injured, Deshaun Johnson is clearly a good player. He clearly is. He clearly has a bright future ahead of him. He's sticky. He's a good defender, and Triquez Bridges has done a really good job stepping in at corner. These guys have shown ability. Again, when an offense is throwing a bunch of stuff at you, misdirection, fakes, doing all kinds of stuff, are you going to stay disciplined and be where you need to be? That's the biggest question for Florida's defense, and that's the biggest difference in this game, in my opinion, because if that answer is no, Hack, you're talking about surviving the first 25 minutes. They won't survive that first one. It'll be 21-3 at half or something gross. If they do, if that secondary does stay disciplined and they get a couple nice 3-and-outs where they get Ole Miss off the field, or at least just keep them out of the end zone and force them to field goals, kind of like they did last week a lot, that type of thing. And then you take your chances with DJ Lagway and his ability to throw the ball down the field and Jaden Ball, and you see if you can get in the end zone one or two times in the first half. To your point, I think even if they're losing in the first half, if it's 10-7, 13-7, something like that, then I totally agree with you. In the second half, you say, all right, I got the swamp behind me. I got some momentum. Ole Miss might be kind of starting to doubt a little bit in their head, and we can go potentially win this game or at least be really competitive.
Southeast Orthopedic Specialist brings you Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network, also on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Again, se-ortho.com for the very best orthopedic care, Southeast Orthopedic Specialist. And we certainly appreciate Southeast Ortho in their continued support of the Gator Bytes podcast. We got to go quick here. I got a little deal to do, a little hack school coming up. I'll tell you the first couple of plays that I want to see for Florida's offense tomorrow. Princely Emmanuel is going to be all sorts of fired up to be back in the swamp. He's going to want to do something pretty quick. I'll tell you what I do. I run a screen or a draw to his side of the field. If I'm Billy Napier and I know that guy's going to come out with his head on fire tomorrow to try to get to Lagway, I'm going to use that against him. I'm going to run a screen over there. Or I'm going to run a draw over there because I'm figuring he's going to come way up the field to try to get that sack early in the game. Use that motivation that Princely has maybe against him tomorrow and start your offense off on a good path.
Yeah. Um, that's not a bad call because he is going to be coming out with his hair on fire, ready to trying to be. And also, I would also say too, if I'm the Gator offensive coaching staff, I might be telling my offensive linemen, hey, don't do anything dumb, don't get yourself kicked out of the game or anything, but chirp him a little bit,
Yeah.
get in his head, be a little back and forth, and it kind of reminds me of last week, Caleb Banks and Garrett Nussmeier were chirping each other all game, and you could tell it was getting in Nussmeier's head a little bit. I thought he was going to throw a devastating interception at some point. I'm kind of surprised he didn't. He ended up with the fumble, obviously. Um, but get him a little fired up. The offensive line, make him a little extra emotional. Maybe get him to shove you late or something and get a 15, something like that to try to get inside. I totally agree with you. If Florida's coaching staff is being smart about it, they'll use that to their advantage in some type of way.
Let's predict the game. Look, I'm very curious about the first quarter and a half, as you said, because I think Ole Miss is going to come out ready to go, take the crowd out of the game, knowing they have to win. It's a playoff game for Ole Miss. I do think the swamp will play a factor, even though it's a noon kick. I think Florida will be in the game. I think they'll have an opportunity to win the game. I just can't imagine back-to-back performances from that defense. What they did against LSU, and if they could do that again against Ole Miss, I don't believe that's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm sure I'll be tweeting during the game, Graham, and I'll be hoping I get a lot of responses, and I hope I'm wrong again. But
when you're wrong and people tweet about you being wrong, then it's their fault.
no, don't tweet me 3 hours after I send it. That's my
Heck,
thing.
we're not going to agree on this. It's okay.
No, we're not. I don't need. If you disagree, come at me 3 minutes later, not 3 hours later. Whatever. Having said all that, because Ole Miss needs to win, because it's a much more important game for them, and I think they have the better talent, it would be foolish to not pick Ole Miss, in my opinion. But I think Florida will be there in the fourth quarter, and if a penalty, a turnover, a bounce of the ball, something haywire happens, would it shock me if Florida wins the game? No. But I think give me Ole Miss by a touchdown. Give me Ole Miss 33, Florida 26.
Well, I'm going to be foolish, Hack. I'm going to be foolish.
Wow.
I'm picking the Gators. Is it orange and
Okay.
blue goggles? Perhaps. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, dang it. I believe because I picked the Gators yesterday on Denmark and Marsh as well. I think I'm forgetting my exact score, but I think I said 31-28. 31-28 Gators. Book it.
If they beat LSU and if they beat Ole Miss in back-to-back weeks, Gator Nation might owe an apology to Billy Napier, because that would be two incredible wins amidst all this uncertainty surrounding him. I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. Either way, we'll be back to review it next week. Are you in town next week before Thanksgiving?
Yes. We'll probably sneak a pot in before Thanksgiving, though, to your point. Maybe a Wednesday or a Tuesday, something like that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to sneak it in before Thanksgiving. But we got to preview Florida State. The Florida State's going to win a game on Saturday. That's good for them. They play a team that's even worse than they are, the 1-10 Charleston Southern. By the way, anybody that goes to Doak Campbell Stadium tomorrow night is a better person than I am. 1-9 Florida State hosting 1-10 Charleston Southern. Are you kidding me? Combined records of 2-19 tomorrow in the state capital. Yikes. All right. You got Florida. I got Ole Miss. Obviously, one of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong. Graham, I appreciate you. I got to skedaddle to Little Hack School, but we'll be back next week with Gator Bytes. Thank you to Southeast Orthopedic Specialists for bringing it to you every week here on 1010XL.com and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.